Hello, and welcome to Handled-ish, Productivity for the Imperfect, a weekly podcast for those who want to elevate their productivity but are not looking for perfection. I'm your host, Betsy Hayes, and I am so glad you're joining me from podcast land or on YouTube. This is episode 24, Superpowers. And this may seem a little silly, but just go with it for a little bit. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. I love to talk about superpowers. This is something I talk about with my students at the beginning of every semester. I am a digital fanatic. As you know, I love my digital tools, but I also love my old school tools. And I take roll via index cards. And so that's the way I take roll. I just go through the index cards each day. And throughout the semester, but particularly at the beginning, I always ask the students a question while I'm taking roll. This does a couple of things. First of all, it gives me an opportunity to know them better. And it also gives me an opportunity to learn their names a little more quickly, because the more they're talking, I can look at them and think about them and their name and get the face and the name and everything all coordinated inside my brain. And I have learned that it's a really good way to learn names and also sort of create a really fun classroom culture. So some of the questions that I ask during roll time have to do with whatever we're discussing in class that day or the course content. And a lot of times they're not. And one of the things I do at the beginning of the semester is I ask everyone to share their superpower. And as you would expect at first, there's a lot of nervous faces because people are, sometimes think, oh my gosh, I don't have a superpower. And then I talk a little bit more about the fact that, yes, you have a superpower. Everyone has a superpower. And in fact, everyone has a ton of superpowers. And so obviously, I'm going to ask you to think about your superpowers. And this can be a myriad of things, right? Like you can make the world's best lasagna, or you are the world's best listener, or you are, a dog whisperer, a cat whisperer, and animals just love you, or you are a grandma whisperer, and, people who are a little bit older love you. It can also be a little bit random. One of the superpowers I like to talk about is the fact that I can untangle necklaces. So if you have a necklace and it has a million knots in it, which does happen if you just throw it in a drawer or whatever, and then you take it out and you think, holy cow, there's no way I can ever wear this necklace because there's a million knots in it. If you know me in real life, bring it my way. I will take care of it for you. It's a very odd superpower. I totally understand. But it's just something I'm really good at. And it's weirdly something I enjoy doing, even though it's something that takes sitting and patience, which are two things I am not long on typically. It's something I really enjoy. And I had to laugh really hard a couple of weeks ago because I was getting my hair done, and I've shout out to Stephanie, who's been doing my hair for just about 30 years now. And I guess at some point, she and I had discussed superpowers, and I had shared with her that I can take, knots out of necklaces. And she had one there for me to take the knots out. And it took me a while, but I did it, and that made her happy. That made me happy. It was just a whole thing. I got to use my superpower, and she got to benefit from my superpower. So it can literally be anything. It can literally be a skill, right? It can literally be just something that you're good from an interpersonal perspective. It can be, a little bit more academic, like maybe you are, a whiz at algebra or calculus or grammar or, spelling, geography, movie trivia, television trivia, figuring out, who is the actor in a show. You're always the one who knows that. There are lots and lots of things that you are good at that you might not have considered as superpowers. So my challenge to everyone this week is to think about what your superpowers are. Maybe think about them in all the categories, right? Like cerebrally, what are you really good at? Relationally, what are you really good at? Sort of oddball things like taking knots out of necklaces. What are you really good at? Maybe you can, grow anything in your garden. God bless you for being able to do that. Maybe you are one that can get, stains out of laundry, for example, or something like that. So what is it that is really cool and interesting about you? And try to think of the most random superpower in the whole wide world, because that makes this conversation a little bit more fun. And then second part of this is I'm going to challenge you to share that superpower with people. Throw me under the bus. Say, hey, I was listening to this podcast and this lady wants me to think about superpowers, and here's mine. I really want to know what yours is. I really think it can be a really fun conversation with the people that you know. Maybe you can do it with your family or your work buddies or your actual, other than work buddies, not that work buddies are not actual buddies, you know what I meant, or neighbors or whatever. But think about that. And the reason I want you to think about what your superpowers with an S are is fun. And we know I love fun. And secondly, thinking about that really helps us feel good about ourselves. It helps our confidence. It helps us understand that we are really cool, unique individual humans with a lot of gifts. And that just helps everything. It helps us, feel like we can accomplish what we want to accomplish, and do our goals, and have I don't know, just feel good. I think this is going to be a fun exercise, and I'm super hopeful that some of you are able and willing to share with me what your superpowers are, because I love to hear people's superpowers. My students are hilarious when they talk about theirs. Um, you know, we've even, had people talk about being really good at taking tequila shots, which, the superpower is in the eye of the beholder, right? So I think that, I love the fact that my students are thinking about this in a bunch of really creative ways. So and what are some of the other really unique ones? Talking about, being the world's greatest, aunt or uncle with nieces and nephews. Dealing with, household related chores, like maybe fixing things, small engine repair, all of that is super, super great. So let's really have a good time with this. And I can't wait to hear what you say. So thanks for joining me today. Let me know what's up with your superpowers, either via social at Betsy Hayes. Hayes is Hays, and or my website, betsyahays.com. And looking forward to it. Please tune in next week for the next episode of Handled-ish, Productivity for the Imperfect. Until then, take care and be kind to yourself. You are doing way better than you think you are. Trust me.